right, so in this video lesson, we are going to go through 6 word problems together. We've already started going through word problems in our previous lessons with point slope form, slope intercept form, and standard form. And what we're going to do today is work on how we can apply those forms to a variety of different word problems depending on what we've been given. So in this case, I know that the water level of a river is 34 feet and it's receding, meaning it's going down at a rate of 0.5 feet per day. Since I see half a foot per day, that tells me I've been given the slope. So since I've been given the slope, one thing I know is the slope. Now I have to figure out what this 34 feet means. Well, that 34 feet is my starting value. So that I would consider my y-intercept because that's at day 0. Now, I am going to rewrite this as a fraction simply because of where we have to go with this. So for part A, my equation would be, now they're using L and D, so water level is L, D is days. The slope is a certain amount of water measurement per day, so that tells me after a certain number of days, the slope will have changed my water level that much. So L is my dependent variable because the water level depends on how many days have gone by. So since this is receding, that means it's going down. So I know my slope has to be negative. So this would be negative 1/2 times the number of days plus the 34 feet we started at. Now for part B, it's asking me when the water level is going to be 6 feet. So for part B, I know that L is 26. So my goal is to work backwards and find how many days that took. So I'm going to have 26 equals negative 1/2 D plus 34. Now keep in mind, these are examples of questions that could be on calculator inactive, so you need to be able to do this without the use of a calculator. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 34. So 26 minus 34 is going to give me negative 8, being equal to negative 1/2 D. Now I have a fraction here, so I'm going to undo my fraction by multiplying by 2. So this tells me negative 16 is negative D. Dividing by negative 1 tells me D equals 16. So that means my answer for part B is 16 days. So that's an example of a word problem in slope-intercept form. The next one we're going to look at is question number 2. So in question number 2, it says you're an avid coin collector. You want to keep better track of your coin collection. After 15 days, you have 155 coins. After 22 days, you have 218 coins. Well, I know right now I have information about days and I have information about coins. I have no idea how many coins we're collecting per day. So that tells me I cannot use any form right now until I figure out what I actually have, and then I can find coins per day. So after 15 days, I've saved 155 coins or collected 155 coins. After 22 days, I have 218 coins. I see two different points right now. That tells my gut that I need to do point slope form. So the first thing I need to do is figure out how many coins per day we are saving. From 155 to 218, that would be 63. And from 15 to 22 would be 7. So in this case, our slope, or our coins per day, would be 63 divided by 7, which gives me 9. So the first thing we need to do is write an equation. Now, since I have points and the slope, I can do point slope form. It did not tell me what type of equation to write. It left that wide open for us. So I'm going to leave this in point slope form. And I'm going to use this first point here. So I have y minus 155 equals 9 times x minus 15. In part B, it's asking us how many days it will take us to have 425 coins. So this is very similar to the question we just did. So this is coins, and this is days. I know how many coins I want to have. I have to figure out how many days it takes us to get there. So for part B, I'm going to substitute 425 in for y. And I'm going to start to solve. Now again, this is calculator inactive, so we need to be able to do this without a calculator. So 425, taking 155 away, 425 minus 100 would give me 325. And then subtracting 55 from 325 would bring me down to 270. Now I notice that if I divided by 9 here, 27 is equally divisible by 9, which means 270 is equally divisible by 9. 27 divided by 9 would be 3. So 270 divided by 9 would be 30. And then I'm going to add 15 to both sides. So this tells me that x is 45. So the answer for part B is 45 days. All right. The next question we're going to look at is question number 3. So students are renting a bus to go to a hockey game. There are 8 vans and 12 buses and a total of 360 students. And our goal is to write an equation that describes this relationship. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is, in my mind, I know vans and buses can hold a different number of students. So I have to figure out what I'm going to have x and y represent. So if I have 8 vans total, ultimately I'm going to have to write a statement that represents how many people can fit in vans. So for X, excuse me, this is only students. This isn't staff. Students in one van is what I'm going to use to represent X. So if X is the number of students in one van, I know 8X would be the number of students in all 8 vans together. And I'm going to do the same thing for Y. This is going to be students in one bus. So if Y is the number of students in one bus, 12Y would represent the students in all of the buses put together. And if I combine these together, I have to get those 360 students into the buses. So this would be part A. That is my equation. And that is standard form. So if we see a situation like this where I have 2 different things we're using to get to my total, I know I'm going to have to do standard form. Now for part B, it's giving us 12 students per van. That's giving me my X value. It's saying how many students in each van. So for part B, I know that X is going to be equal to 12. So I have 8 times 12 plus 12Y being 360. Now again, this is calculator inactive, so I have to be able to do this in my head. So 8 times 10 gives me 80. 8 times 2 gives me 16. 80 and 16 gives me 96. I'm going to subtract 96 from both sides. So 12Y. Now I have to think. 360 minus 96. Well, if it was 360 minus 100, that would be 260. But this number I'm subtracting is less than that, so my answer is going to be a little bit more. So that would be 264. Now you can do this a variety of different ways, dividing 12 into 264. I'm not going to dictate what way you choose to do that. If you prefer long division, go to town. Ultimately, you should get Y being 22. So our answer would be 22 students per bus. All right, we're going to move on to question number 4. And now you're going to start to see some repeats of the processes we've already done. We have done a question in slope-intercept form, we've done a question in point-slope form, and we've done a question in standard form. So now I'm going to have to figure out if this is like question 1, question 2, or question 3. So reading through our scenario, we're watering plants. After 5 seconds, my watering can has 58 ounces, and after 15 seconds, it has 28 ounces of water. So I have the number of seconds and the number of cans of water, or excuse me, number of ounces of water left in our watering can. So after 5 seconds, I have 58 ounces of water. Now this says 15 seconds later. That means 15 seconds have gone by from the 5 seconds that I've just had. So this is actually 20 seconds and 28 ounces of water. Now that is a trick. They are trying to trip you up. If it said after 15 seconds, this would be 15. However, it says 15 seconds later from this information they've already given us. That's why this is plus 15. Now going from 58 down to 28, it's decreasing, so I know this has to be a minus. And then that's going down by 30. So if I'm looking at our slope, or the number of ounces per second, it's negative 30 divided by 15, which gives me negative 2. Now, if it's asking for what your slope means in context, that means our watering can is decreasing by 2 ounces of water per 1 second. That would be the statement that explains my slope in context. So since I have points and a slope, we're going to make point slope form. So this is x for seconds and y for ounces. So I have y minus 58 equals negative 2 times x minus 5. And for part B, it wants us to know how much water was in the can when we started watering the plants. Now you could go about this 2 different ways. If I'm starting to water the plants, that means that it's time 0. That represents my y-intercept. So you could rearrange this formula and get it into slope-intercept form. Or, since it's starting, I know it's time 0, so I could also substitute 0 in for x. That's what I'm going to do because I think for me that's going to take less time. So I'm going to have y minus 58 being equal to negative 2 times 0 minus 5. That means y minus 58 is negative 2 times negative 5. Y minus 58 is positive 10. And then I'm going to add 58 to both sides. So this is y being equal to 68, which means the answer to part B, since it's asking how much water was in the can, and I'm answering these in word problem form, everything has to have units. So I would say 68 ounces. I would not write y equals 68 as an answer for this question. All right, we've got 2 more to go through together. So for question number 5, you can make $50 per pool cleaning during the summer. Well, since it told me how much money I could make per pool, that would be my slope. And I'm earning money, so it's going to be positive. But I needed to purchase some equipment to get started. And after cleaning 3 pools, I was still down $15. So what I'm looking at here is the number of pools I've cleaned and how much money we've made. So after I cleaned 3 pools, I still was down $15. because I had to put up money ahead of time and purchase equipment, we're going to assume, since this is probably a kid in high school, they had to borrow some money from their parents. So they owe their parents $15 still. So in this case, I have a point that gives me information about a pool and money, and I know how much money I make for cleaning each pool. So this is another point slope equation. So I'm going to have y minus negative 15, which is really plus 15, being equal to 50 times x minus 3. So this is my equation for part A. For part B, it wants to know how much money we will have made after cleaning 12 pools. So for part B, I know that x is 12 because I've cleaned 12 pools. So y plus 15 equals 50 times 12 minus 3. Well, 12 minus 3 would be 9. So I'm going to do 50 times 9, which is really similar to 5 times 9, which is 45. So 50 times 9 is 450. And then the last thing I have to do is subtract 15. So subtracting 15 from that gives me 435. So I would write my answer as $435. All right, and the last question, where is it? There it is. The last question we're going to do here is number 7. So on number 7, we have a landscaping company that's selling 13 bushels and 4 trees for $616. So what I don't know is how much 1 bushel and 1 tree cost. So that's going to help me define what my x and y variables mean. So I'm going to do x as the money for 1 bush and y as the money for 1 tree. Now I need to write 2 terms here. This is going to end up being standard form because I have bushes and trees that are going to end up selling for a certain total. So ultimately, my equation is going to get me that $616 total. So if I'm selling 13 bushes and I don't know how much I'm selling them for, that's going to be X. And then I'm also selling 4 trees for some unknown amount, Y. And that's my equation. This is another standard form. So for part B, trees cost $63. Well, trees was Y, so Y is 63. So I'm going to substitute that in. So I have 13x plus 4 times 63 equals 616. Again, this is calculator inactive. So I need to be able to do this without a calculator. So 4 times 60 is 240. 4 times 3 is 12. So 240 plus 12 gives me 252. And then I'm going to subtract 252. So I have 13x being equal to, and again, I don't care how you do this. You know I prefer not to do stacking, but if that's what floats your boat, then that's what you do. Either way you slice it or dice it, this should give you 364. And then I'm going to have to divide by 13. And again, if you choose to do long division, that's absolutely fine by me. Ultimately, you should get 28 as your final answer. So a bush is $28.